Great, welcome everybody. This meeting of the Heritage Advisory Committee is called to order at 1:01 p.m. Eastern. Please note the meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic meetings are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. I'll now read the township's land acknowledgement statement. The lands we know today as the township of Puslin have been home to Indigenous people since time immemorial. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Hattah-Wanderark, as well as the treaty lands and traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee. With increasing encroachment by non-Indigenous settlers in the township of Puslin, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee could not continue their traditional lifestyle and settled in their villages along the Credit River in the Grand River Valley. These Indigenous nations uphold their treaty rights within our jurisdiction. Today, the township of Puslin remains home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We are grateful to have the opportunity to share and respect Mother Earth and are committed to building constructive and cooperative relationships with Indigenous nations. We'll now move to roll call, and I'll do a roll call for those in attendance, starting with committee members, and then we'll do township staff as well. So I guess today I'll start on my right. So Cheryl?
Here.
Andy?
Here.
Myself? Lily?
Here.
And Christine.
Here.
And township staff, we've got Sarah.
Here.
And gosh.
Go, Russell.
I'm like, sorry, I'm thinking here. Laura,
I'm here, guys.
right, I had just another thought jump to my mind, sorry. Laura. And Justine.
Here.
Thank you. And so we'll now take a moment of reflection where I will think about Laura's name. Pause. Right, we'll move to item number 4, the confirmation of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda that anybody would like to make? I know Laura, you had one. Any committee members have any
Any
additions?
amendments, yeah?
Did we want to flip flop the order?
Yes, we'll have Mary do her report
Okay.
first. Yes, that's very true.
So beyond that, just a minor tweak to the order of the agenda, but no actual changes. Can we have you walk us through that?
The Heritage Advisory Committee approves the January 13th agenda as circulated.
Can we have a mover?
I'll move that.
Seconder, Andy. All in favor? Carried. All right.
And then through you, sure, we'll just do the closures of pecuniary interest. Pending someone has one for the donation policy, and then we'll do the donation policy.
Sure. I do want to roll through that. You just want to state that?
Yeah, well, yeah, just do number 4,
Okay.
like,
So item number 5, do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest in general? And then if there's one for the donation policy, as Laura noted, we'll tackle that one. I think based on the agenda today, I'd be surprised if there was any. Okay, so then we'll move to item 8.3, the proposed donation policy in the agenda, as we have our treasurer and capital asset management co-op student here. So I see Mary's online.
I am here and I can actually update Daniel. It seems that he may be a little bit late because he has a class going on right before this, so.
Okay, sounds good. Mary, I'll turn it over to you to walk us through the policy, please.
Sure. So I know that Laura did prepare a report and attach the policy as Schedule A to the report. And I can, sorry, Russell, did you want me to go through the report in detail, or how would you like me to present?
Yeah, I think, Mary, that everybody's probably had an opportunity to read it. If you could maybe just hit the high points for us would be beneficial, kind of like the, you know, the key elements of it. I suspect we'll probably have a few questions, but, yeah, I don't know if we need a line by line
Okay,
review of it.
perfect. So this donation policy has been prepared looking at other donation policies at other municipalities. So Daniel and I did work on this policy over the last year or so. There is some information in there regarding the commemorative bench and tree program as well. And so that's been recommended in there based on previous council direction, including costs associated with the program and what's included in the cost. So that's all been outlined in the report. Also been some information included regarding acknowledgement of donations, and that's within the actual proposed donation policy that's been attached. This has been provided to council for information, but we are going through the public engagement process currently. So the plan is to report back to council at their meeting held on February 20th. But Laura has made live an engagement survey at engagepluslynch.ca. It was made live last week, and we're hoping to have it closed for January 31st. So actually, one of the first committees that we're discussing this policy with is the Heritage Advisory Committee. It's also going to the Youth and Recreation Committee as well for their input as well. And so there are other opportunities to provide input through the survey that's currently live as well. And so just going through the policy at a high level. So the purpose of it is accepting donations and the processes associated with issuing official donation receipts. The scope of it includes monetary donations, gift in kind donations, sponsorships and naming rights, and contributions to a township park through the commemorative bench and tree program. So the reason we've incorporated all of these different types of donations within this policy is just to ensure that there's consistency and clarity within the policy to ensure that we're treating the different types of donations in a uniform manner as much as we can. And it also assists with streamlining the administration of the policy to incorporate all these different types of donations within one policy. It also assists with simplified communication to members of the public, finance staff, corporate services department staff. It's a policy that requires input from different departments. And it avoids duplication in terms of having it all in one comprehensive policy. There's a section in the policy regarding specific definitions, and a lot of these definitions come straight from the Canada Revenue Agency's definitions associated with different facets of donations. There's also a section in the policy regarding accepting donations and how the township will evaluate each donation prior to accepting it. Gift and kind donations are more specific in terms of the requirements associated with those. So there's a section within the policy for these specific types of donations, as well as sponsorships and naming rights. The CRA does have specific rules associated with sponsorships and naming rights, and we followed another member municipality's policy as it relates to sponsorships and naming rights. That's worked really well at that municipality. The commemorative bench and tree program, there are a number of municipalities that have such programs. So we've reviewed those policies and tried to enhance our policy to ensure it's clear for those who want to be a donor for a commemorative bench or a tree. There's a section in there related to accounting for donations. Obviously, the CRA has very specific and stringent rules for issuing official donation receipts. And so we want this clearly laid out in the policy, so it's clear what types, the specific accounting that the finance department will be responsible for donations. Yeah, so that's just a very high level. Actually, one of the last sections relates to the acknowledgement of donations and what types of donations will be acknowledged and in what manner they'll be acknowledged. And so this section may be tweaked based on input that we receive through our survey or through our advisory committees. So I'd be happy to answer any questions from the advisory committee in relation to this policy.
Great, thanks, Mary. I appreciate that. That was a good run through. I think you hit most of the stuff that I recalled in going through it. So I'll open it up to committee members. Any questions or points of clarity or recommendations that you have for Mary or to discuss?
I wanted to say this is well done. Thank you for doing this. I work in the charitable sector and this is important work. I guess my only question, because there's lots of great things in there that I went looking for and found. But my only question, there are things like in the acknowledgement piece, which was the last one you looked at, there are numerical values, right? So there's $20, or there's like, if it's over 30,000, it'll be acknowledged with a plaque. How often is this reviewed so that those can be updated? Just
So-
given if.
Yeah, very good question. Most of our policies we aim to review them on a 5-year rotation. However, these are living documents. And so if there are certain recommendations that come out as we implement the policy, we can work to update the policy based on staff's review of the clarification or input received.
Right.
Other comments, questions? Lily?
I have a comment about the recommended tree. I believe it says a maple tree is recommended, a hardwood maple. Could I perhaps suggest that it includes native maple tree? Just because there are some non-native and invasive varieties. I don't think it's in your policy. I think it is in your discussion beforehand.
Yes, it's in the report. Lord, if that's something that the committee wants us to look into, then we can work with Mike when reporting back to council on that.
Okay.
Everybody's supportive of Lily's suggestion, because I'm seeing lots of heads nodding
Yeah.
here, so maybe
Perfect.
leave it to kind of find the best way to incorporate that, but I think personally, I think it's a good and timely and relevant build.
Perfect.
Other comments? Andy, Cheryl, anything from your perspectives? Good. I did have a couple questions, Mary, just from my own perspective. I think, the one, I guess, it was just kind of occurring to me because we're speaking today at the Heritage Advisory Committee, and to my date, this wasn't really driven by any heritage specific kind of donation or funding request previously, to my knowledge anyways. So I think, one thing that I wanted to make sure that we were quite clear, like this is a municipal policy. In the future, it may incorporate heritage attributes if they get captured in the donation piece. So this is at a much higher level than specific to heritage. The one that came to mind, so we're working through the process around the, the school bell and the cairn, or potential cairn development and design, and at some point in the future, if the direction's provided to go look for co-funding or sponsorship or donations, this would be a policy that this committee would ultimately get caught up in. So that may be one of the first guinea pigs through this process, if you will. So I just wanted to mention that. The one other one, and I'm glad that you noted vetting this through other municipalities, because I'm a big believer of like let's learn from others as opposed to drafting it completely from scratch. So beg, borrow, and stealing. But I guess maybe my one question was, the tree policy or the bench policy, and I guess in my mind, and maybe this is just something that you can explain if you can, Mary. I get the donation piece if we're building a shed as a municipality or a fence or something like that, and they're looking for community donations to help support that. With the tree or the bench, my understanding would be that an individual or group could go through the process of having a bench placed somewhere according with the Parks and Rec staff and operations in the appropriate places and all that type of thing. But that wouldn't be a donation per se, or how does that work from like a tax receipt
Yeah.
standpoint.
A very good point. So that is actually gift in kind donation because it is a gift of tangible property. And so it would be an eligible donation, that could, like if the donor did want an official donation receipt, they could obtain an official donation receipt. So that is actually a donation.
Okay, and that's helpful, because I wasn't 100% sure how that would, how one would approach that, because I think in other municipalities I've seen, it's because I had my wife's family did a tree for a great aunt type of thing, and it was just basically like, here's $500, they'll plant a tree in their name type of thing. There was no donation associated with that. So I just think from this municipality standpoint, we just need to be really clear of what it is and what it's not type of thing. And I like really hammering on that in-kind donation piece, as opposed to, you know, I'd like my name on a, banner at the ballpark type of thing, which is quite different, right? So this is very all encompassing, which great, as long as it provides staff the direction and clarity, I think I'm supportive. I think there was just a few little nuances there that maybe my suggestion would be in subsequent committee meetings or public consultations, maybe if you give some examples, might be a bit more helpful for people to wrap their head around more than anything. Like, but I don't see any challenges here. Anything else, folks? Okay, well, that was good. I'm glad we can be the first one to, at the committee level, to review this. I think this is good. This is evolutionary as municipality. How do we put clarity around these type of things? So, well done.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder, if you do have further comments, the survey is live until, I believe, January 31st. So you could just go to engagepuslynch.ca and provide any further comments that we have, that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary.
I'm assuming, Laura, that we're pushing that out through the social media channels
yeah.
as well, probably, so.
You'll see a few over the next couple of weeks for that.
And thank you to Daniel in his absence. I suspect he's been supporting you in this process, so even though he's
Very
not
much
here,
so. Yeah,
do
thank you
want to
very much.
acknowledge his work.
I will let him know. Thank you.
All right, Laura.
Yeah, so the resolution is that report HER 2025-003 entitled the proposed donation policy be received, and that the following comments from the Heritage Advisory Committee be provided to council for its consideration. That consideration be given to including native species of trees throughout the commemorative tree program in the policy. That kind of then captures that we would hopefully.
Was there anything captured around the timelines that Christine had noted, or was that more just a suggestion to examine in the future?
It will be evaluated every 5 years.
Yeah,
So we're
our
good
common
with that?
practice is 5 years, so as long as the committee's good with that, then.
Okay,
Mhm.
We just need a mover.
mover and a seconder, Lily. And Cheryl will go with you this time, get everybody's name in the notes. And all support. All right, carried. All right, now. Item number 6, I do not believe we have any delegations today, Laura. And so we'll move to the consent agenda. So item number 7.1, the December 2nd, 2024, sorry. Right,
Mhm.
for Heritage Committee minutes. Are there any consent agenda items the committee would like to pull out for discussion within the minutes? Okay, hearing none.
Yeah.
Laura?
The resolution is that the consent agenda items listed for the January 13th committee meeting be received for information.
Can we have a mover? Christine, seconder, Andy, all support. Carried, all right. Item number 8, the committee report. So 8.1 is report HER 2025-001, 2022 through 26 goal and objectives update. So Laura, can you just walk us through this?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is just an information report that reviews the goals and objectives the committee worked on throughout 2024. as well as just a little information about the current project the committee's working on, those 2026 Part 1 priority properties.
Any questions for Laura at all? All right. We'll look for a motion.
Mhm.
All right, Andy. Seconder. Cheryl. All right, all in support. Carried. All right, 8.2, report HER 2025-002, terms of reference in goal and objectives training.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this report just reviews the updated terms of reference that was approved by council with some changes to it at their meeting in December, kind of as it relates to subcommittees and the number of goals and objectives at any given time. And there's also now like a work plan that staff have created for all the committees to follow as you work throughout the year. Let me just pull this up for everyone, and then we'll just go over, staff have just created a presentation that kind of goes over all these changes, so it's all in one spot. Let me share this on the screen. So this presentation kind of just goes over, again, a review of the purpose of the advisory committees, as well as the goal and objective process and the terms of reference process, and then looking at what that 2025 committee work plan is for the Heritage Committee. The first topic being that quick review of the purpose of an advisory committee, remembering that you're an advisory committee of council. So again, you can make recommendations to council, but can't be the final decision makers on it. And then you can make your advisory committee as it kind of relates to anything with the preservation, celebration, and education to Heritage and Puss Lynch. And particularly right now, you're advising council on the heritage designations, the applications for repeal of designations or applications for alterations, and to advise council on any potential local impact of any new legislation related to the Heritage Act. The next slide is kind of just a quick review of setting goals and objectives. So we use those goals and objectives as an overarching tool for what the committee works on throughout the term. And there are those two ways that goals and objectives can be added to the committee work plan. That goals and objectives proposal form for that council to consider, or having council refer you an item to the committee. And then I just wanted to quickly touch on the difference between asking the committee for comments on an item and council referring a goal and objective to the committee. So when council asks for the committee's comments, staff bring that to the committee through a report, and the committee makes those comments that are then referred back up to council. But the committee may not see that again, versus if the council refers a goal and objective to a committee, they're then kind of free to work on that item, form those subcommittees, and then that may be discussed over multiple committee meetings. And then this kind of just shows you the flow chart of the two different types of goals and objectives there are. The first, you prepare that goal and objective form for council's consideration. There is a committee member or a subcommittee that would bring this forward. And then the committee would probably review and endorse it, that third item there. And then once endorsed, staff then prepare a report that goes to council to, and if that is approved by council, then you can kind of move on to the next steps and work on that goal and objective. And then this little yellow part just kind of talks about, or like is a reminder of the timing of when a goal and objective goes through, and if any of it has budget impacts, that it should probably be that June, July, August area, because we will start preparing our budget for the following year, kind of the beginning of fall. But if it doesn't require any funding, the subcommittees are free to work on anything right away once that goal and objective is approved. And then the second one's a bit shorter. It's just if council refers an item to you, staff would bring that forward to the committee, and then it's added to the committee's work plan. Down here. So the biggest change for the terms of reference that the committee will probably notice is an update to the limit of only having 2 goals and objectives at any given time. So goals and objectives will be prioritized, and there will be a limit of having two with, if council refers an item to, that would be prioritized over another one. With that being said, if there is a super time sensitive item, special consideration is given and that wording is included in the updated TORs to allow for more than 2 active goals and objectives at any given time. And next is just a slide about how it's the committee members' role to lead those goals and objectives. Staff are here to kind of answer questions, but will assist kind of only when needed and are here in that supporting role. So similarly, how we provide all the information to you on that we have on hand for those statements of cultural heritage, value, or interest. But then it's the subcommittee's role to kind of like take that information, fill in any of the gaps that are there, see if the property is worthy of designation, so on and so forth. And then similar to the process you guys have followed lots of times is how the subcommittees might draft a committee memo, staff would finalize that memo or make sure that there's any budget implications included in it. And then also staff would help with drafting any sort of resolution that needs to go to the committee. And then this is a look at, now it is quite, the 2025 work plan that we have. So to kind of help with that transition of only having a maximum of 2 goals and objectives, we have created this work plan. And more items could be added to it, but like they could be active or inactive. So you can see, for example, right now the committee actually has 1 quote unquote active goal and objective, if that's what we're calling it, through the first half of the year to work on those 2026 Part 1 properties. And then the second half of the year we'll transition to those next properties. But there is room for another goal and objective. So if the committee wants to continue with the Killian School Bell unveiling ceremony, that would be the logical next one. That would be the second active goal and objective. But that also doesn't mean that committee members can't work sort of independently on any research or other projects. You're still able to work through like the Heritage Conservation District, kind of independently. But if it's an inactive goal, staff probably won't be able to support you as much as when it is an active goal. So there's then that process to think about, and this will get added to as things are added in off the list. And we're rearing the end here. This is also included in the goals and objectives reports that the committee sees the goals and objectives reports the committee sees each meeting has things like training and development that we regularly report to council, all of those things. Going forward, those aren't goals and objectives. Those are just like things that we're going to keep doing. I'll let you know when there is any information on training, but it's not included in sort of the active or inactive goals and objectives. It's just something that we'll keep doing. And then any other changes that are in this updated TOR are included wording about how committee members have to adhere to all township policies and procedures, like our code of conduct and our procedural bylaw. And there's also additional wording on absenteeism and the process for missing multiple meetings in a row. That used to kind of be included on our procedural bylaw, but it was never in specific committees' terms of reference. So there's just updated wording on if you miss 3 more meetings without letting anyone know, then you essentially have been resigned from the committee. And that's kind of the changes in a nutshell. It's my first time going over it, so I hope I ish explained things somewhat well. But of course, if you guys have any questions on what that means for the Heritage Committee or any of your projects, then I'd be happy to go over any of that stuff with you guys.
Thanks, Laura. So we're the guinea pig committee.
Apparently.
So first one of the new year. Thanks for that. So we'll just open it up to committee members. Any comments or questions, points of clarity that you have for this document?
Maybe for point of clarity, like I would have thought that the Bell thing was an active goal, like because we were placed on a committee. You reached out to us to meet with you, and which we're following through with. That's why I can't understand why it isn't an active goal right now.
So it's like on its way to being active, like nothing is, the words active and inactive, like nothing is technically quote unquote active until it's approved by council is kind of the process. Like of what we'd calling an active goal and objective versus inactive. But hopefully in like the next couple of months, then if it is approved by council, it will be an active goal and objective. So maybe that is something that we can at least consider, because it's not like you guys will write the committee memo or anything, but we also can answer questions on how to do it or tweak that committee memo. Like, I don't want you to feel like you're in the dust, but it hopefully will be an active goal and objective, if that makes any sense.
And it's something that's gonna take some time, so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it will soon need to be active.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Cheryl. Others? Lily?
Just kind of on the same point, so to clarify, we can be on more than one subcommittee, but only one subcommittee then would have the active goal. Because if you're on more than one, that makes.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now too, especially because the big goal is the designating of those properties. So when that is one of the goals and objectives, then there probably there would only be room for one other goal and objective.
So let's say the subcommittee for the Heritage District would be an inactive goal, but we should get it onto the list. Okay.
Correct, like it can still get onto the list, you can still work your way through it, and it could even be approved by council, and then it would, like, if there's two other things the committee's working on, those might be the two active, and then in October, when the Pleasant Community Showcase is over and we've done the unveiling of the Killian Bell, then another one could get added. Like, if it's already been approved by council, it'll then become the active goal and objective. Does that make sense? Am I saying it right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the active and inactive is to help clarify what staff are able to support at that time. So, for example, the subcommittee that has been identified for the Clean School Bell, for that presentation material, right now you guys will be working independently on creating that goal and objective proposal. And when you're ready to bring that proposal to the committee, that's when staff can assist with the review as we would typically. But kind of prior to that, that's being developed by you as a subcommittee without the staff support, because it hasn't come to that active stage yet. And then, as Laura was mentioning, there can be a list of goals, but there will only be 2 active at a time, and those are the ones that staff are supporting. Any of the inactive ones, if you were to work on independently, that's the prerogative of that subcommittee, but they can't be discussed at the committee because they're not actively being worked on. And they won't have that additional staff support through the development.
I think I get it. So the purpose of this is more for staff support. We can do whatever we feel like, but yeah.
So it'll clarify what we discussed at the
Okay.
committee level and when things will come forward to the committee level, and then, yes, what staff are actively able to support on.
I think I got it.
Is this an effort to make sure that staff are not overburdened?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, as we have our one committee coordinator who is the coordinator for multiple committees, this is an effort to make sure that we're able to assist all committees with their goals and objectives, while ensuring that we're maintaining a workload that's achievable for the committees and staff.
I like it.
I
I have a question. I just went looking, couldn't find, but I'm sure it's somewhere, the length of term. Where is that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the length of term is actually contained in the appointment bylaws for the
Okay.
committees. So this committee is appointed to the end of, I believe 2026, or until the appointment of the next committee.
Right.
So I just have
Go ahead,
one
Sherry.
other thing to clarify. So we haven't settled in on the design of the bell, and we would have to have a contractor that we would want to make sure that the bell base is built in time for the unveiling. And is that part of, or is that different from these goals? Like, Where does that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so the committee at the last meeting had a reconsideration of the recommendation that they made to council, and the new recommendation is that the design of the bell be referred to, and our committee coordinator can correct me if I'm wrong, to the Westland Historical Society as well as the owner to provide feedback, and then that this committee would only receive an information feedback going forward. So it would know, the committee at this level is no longer providing input, was the recommendation.
But that doesn't preclude Laura's involvement in that discussion, because I believe it ends up being Laura that has to coordinate the.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it will, it's going to council's recommendation, and the council will direct staff.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll see the recommendation.
So how does the Historical Society put their input in on the design?
Next week or this week, when council will see the recommendation, if council's like, yep, we want to hear from the Historical Society and anyone else, then it would be me that would reach out to the Historical Society and ask for input. But we just can't do that until council gives us the go ahead. It's kind of the process there.
So to help clarify, I think it might help, it's just not this committee, I think Cheryl is what is happening. Everything else is fine, but just taking place outside of the committee goals, right, correct? Does that help?
It's a council issue at this point.
Yeah.
And kind of the design and the structure and the building of the school bell is separate from having a sort of ceremony to unveil it. Like those kind of things are two separate items. Like one is kind of now with staff / council, and then the other one, you guys as the subcommittee can kind of start to develop if, what a ceremony would look like to unveil that in October.
I had one point, so is there another subcommittee from with staff involvement that is, it's the 175th this year? Is there another group that's taking that on to help us celebrate?
No formal subcommittee per se. Like staff are working on what the showcase would look like, having it be part of the 175th anniversary, but not a subcommittee at a committee level.
And I don't, we're involved kind of indirectly, but I was just wondering if there's something else. So October is the date for the, I mean, it includes the unveiling, but there's other celebrations, I assume.
Totally. Pending council approves the budget for it. These next few weeks.
One side note question, do you happen to know what day of the year, like, that was incorporated? I know it was 1850, but.
Oh, that we were a town?
Yeah, the township of Portsmouth became the township of Portsmouth in 1850, but we weren't able to find a date.
Oh, like what, like July?
Wikipedia says January 1st, but that's probably by default.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. No.
And in our discussions, we weren't sure if there was going to be other celebrations or only the unveiling of the bell. And we knew that other celebrations occurred in the June, July time, but yet we found the January. Sure. If there was an actual.
I think they had a parade in 2000, July was the celebration there.
And this is some interesting feedback from maybe staff, but again, this is the guinea pig meeting of the year is, and even just like, as a counselor, that might be interesting just to see like a schedule of events for 2025, even if there's a lot of gaps there, just from a community perspective, what kind of is planned at a high level, and that can get disseminated to various committees, whether it's this one or others, and where they may choose to engage or see a role for themselves and or the community groups. So obviously here, like the Historical Society, I think I suspect be highly engaged at some point. So just it's not fair to you guys to just like ask for random dates that it's not at your hand, but maybe that's something even at a subsequent committee meeting. I think our next one's March sometime. Might be worth just vocalizing when you're able to put a bit more send a paper on it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, are you looking for dates of like township initiated events, or are you seeking like a broader community calendar?
So my initial thinking, I don't wanna get into too much work. My initial thought was township initiated events, but then you prompted my thought is it's never bad to have something that goes beyond that, but like how do you manage that as staff, right? So I'd say for here and now, it's probably township managed or overseeing events. And if there's other community groups who want to add to that, great, but that might be a starting point. Again, I'm sensitive not to just like make work projects type of thing, but this is an important milestone in the community. So it might be good just to be as proactive as one can on this one. And that might garner, just maybe to Cheryl's points, garner some conversations and discussions in the outside the, you know, this within the community to add to it or just share information. So I'll leave that with staff to kind of ponder. But I think it's a valid point. Other comments, questions, observations from the committee? I do have a couple. One, really good document. Actually, well done on this. I think what I would encourage you guys to do is when any new members join the committee periodically. So I think even in like in this case, Cheryl, you joined this committee after kind of the last cycle of council. So I think it would be really good to, whenever this happens, whether this is Heritage or other committees, is this part of your orientation package. I think this is really good. And I think the two pieces that are really important is the process flow that you talked about in terms of how committees operate. They're an advisor. In our case, it's an advisory committee. There's others that have different regulatory jurisdictions, but I think that's important to understand, like the flow of how things work and the direction upon work plans and making advice and recommendations. So I would just encourage you to, as part of that onboarding process, to include that. A couple other ones that just kind of came to mind here, and I think we bantered around active and inactive goals. And my only suggestion would be is when I look at that chart, whether it's a color schematic or a separate column, and in my mind, it's achieved or completed, inactive, which I quite see as these are ideas or concepts that the committee's been identified as a priority. They're just not an active one. So I don't like, I'm sensitive just to have all the good ideas and objectives. If it's not an active one, it just goes away and it gets lost to time. So I would very much encourage the active, inactive, and completed. I think we were getting to that, but I'd say for me, I see great value in that because then as a committee member, you can see what's in the docket or what's coming, right? And I think that's really important. Yeah, I think probably the last one from my standpoint would be is, and I would encourage, and again, I say this not as a make work project, but like this committee was really active in 2024. I would encourage Aurora through social media or some other form, a heritage committee year review. And pull out like 3 really important things this committee did and push them out there. Cause like, this is a really active committee. And I think we've done a lot of really good work. And we've got even more really good work coming in 2025 and 2026. But just when I was going through the goals and objectives, not so much to your presentation, but like the nuts and bolts of it, like really good work here, right? And that does take a lot of time and effort from both the committee members, but ultimately a lot of that's the staff level, right? So we can always get hammered as, oh, this is, you know, committee work. It gets kind of caught in the doldrums, but when you kind of take a half of a step back and look at all the stuff that was achieved in 2024, like it's a really active committee, right? So take credit for that once in a while, is all I'll say for that one. Yeah, no, overall really good. I think all we were pulling out is maybe some builds in terms of the clarity.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and like, it looks like an annual work plan, but we could totally do it in a way that's just like an overarching term work plan. That right now we have the two things, like the one inactive and the one inactive. But below it, there would then be 2023 designations, 2024 designations, engagement, open house, land acknowledgement, like we could definitely include in the goals and objectives report, kind of like the overarching, like year to date or like term to date of what the committee's gone through, so far, as a way to kind of see, and just be as a reminder of how much work the committee has put in.
I would personally find that very helpful. I'm sensitive though, it's not just like adding work on, but I think it's more just like a culmination of, good stuff and then the stuff to come. And, and for the next term of council, because we're about 2 years out from that right now, that'll give them the next iteration of this committee will give them a very clear understanding of what was achieved in the 4 years leading up to them. And they can, choose at that point in time, which goals and objectives they want to see continued. Or add new ones. That's for them to decide, so, well done.
Can I add a little bit to what
Go
Melissa
ahead.
just said? I think we did see dates in this section previously, right? So I think those dates showing what we did by those dates was helpful, and I guess he'll probably come back for us for which dates we're expecting certain things to be done by.
You're thinking like 2025 going forward?
Well, just, I remember seeing that we were supposed to have a review done, we were supposed to give drafts by certain dates and when the open houses were. I believe that was documented in this goals.
Yes, and if it's not in this specific month's one, it has been previously, or is it a?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the timelines and dates typically aren't in the overarching goals and
Okay.
objectives, they're usually in like the specific reports.
Okay, so
But we could certainly take that as feedback. if
Yes,
you wanted
that's
to see
true,
those
okay, I
updated.
understand.
I'm thinking it kind of goes with what Russell was suggesting with what we accomplished, and this is what you're saying is this is high level, but if we drill down into that, you can see a bit more details of what the committee has. And going forward, it'll be what helps us meet our timelines.
And do you want me to capture in the minutes about doing an annual?
Yes,
Okay.
and unless anybody disagrees with doing an annual, here's what's been achieved. I think that's important. I'm not having it be so.
So that report HER 2025-002 entitled Terms of Reference and Goals and Objectives Training be received. And that the committee recommend that council direct staff to draft a year in review of work completed by the advisory committees annually.
With the mover, Andy, seconder, Cheryl, on support. Very carried. Awesome. Good job, Laura. I know that's a lot of work. I'm sure every other committee will be way easier on in terms of the comments. Yeah, that's good. I think we're getting near the end. I didn't see any correspondence. Do we have any? None? Okay. Any announcements at all from staff or committee members? Sure, maybe one question. Anything from the Historical Society that they're, key activities over the next kind of couple months that they're working on at all, that I think would be of value to kind of share with the larger population?
So we are working on, discussing the design of the bell. We're also, working on, planning because we think, the township would like our help with celebrating the anniversary. So we're planning, displays for, Canada Day and Fall Fair that would include, photos and displays of past, anniversary celebrations for the township. And we're also planning, for, the, display, the picture display for the permanent display to go in the community center. We're working on finding, good pictures of all the schools that would represent that. And I don't know, who would be planning the wording for the plaque, but that's kind of crossed in our topics too.
No, that's good. Lots of really good stuff going on there, so appreciate you sharing those and,
And because we're volunteer and that's why we're sensitive about the
timelines.
timing. Yeah, because we'd rather be done soon, than too late.
Yeah, and maybe just, you know, we can discuss that offline. But yeah, if there's something that's acutely needed within that group.
And one thing that we discussed, we wondered if there was any photos, available. Lynn in particular knows one of her albums, may be located at the township for the 150th celebration, or no, for the digging of the Reed Heritage Site was the one that she said that she was missing. So, but if there's any photos that anyone else knows that would be appropriate for displaying in the celebrations, we could put them together with ours.
It's good.
I think you want to add, Lily? I think you got it.
Great. No, certainly my mindset would be to support the historical society as best we can. So I think this is a great opportunity to showcase all the uniqueness that this community has. So awesome. Anything else in terms of announcements, folks? All right, I don't believe we have any notice of motion unless somebody wants to drop one. Any new business that anybody cares to share? Okay. Which brings us to item number 13 in the agenda.
That the
Adjournment.
Heritage Advisory Committee hereby adjourns at 1:53 PM.
So moved.
Dean, seconder, Andy. All support, carried. All right, thank you, folks.